Hello everyone, Giltar here with a pseudo review of the Gundam 00 movie called Awakening of the Trailblazer. Now I'm calling this a pseudo review because I've just finished watching this movie and I want to sort of do a more spontaneous review while the movie experience is fresh in my mind and I haven't taken any time to sort of analyze the movie and gather my thoughts and really sort of, I don't know, do a more of a analytical review. I want to do this in a more sort of fast and free and loose fashion. So that being said, I will be getting into some spoiler territory. If you haven't seen the movie yet and you don't want to get into spoilers before seeing it, just don't watch this video. Come back to it after you've seen the movie. So you've had your warning. To start off, I really do like this movie. I think it was overall just a great Gundam 00 movie. As a Gundam 00 fan, I pretty much saw everything I wanted to see from this movie, and I'm quite pleased. Now, I do have one single criticism of the movie, the only sort of major or significant criticism, which is the portrayal of the antagonist. I felt was a very weak and poorly thought out execution, because they're essentially a faceless, mindless bad guy that just is only there as a plot device to create a problem for the heroes to solve. And that's all. I mean, we don't get any insight into them, except for a sort of connection towards the end of the movie, where Setsuna reaches some sort of understanding with them. But outside of that, they're just basically these nameless bad guys. They might as well be like just super powerful cannon fodder, as far as I'm concerned. And unfortunately, there was an opportunity to maybe add more depth and detail and complexity to them that just wasn't taken. Now that being said, I'm going to head on to my first positive point of the movie, which is related to the aliens, which is simply the use of an alien invasion angle in Gundam. Now, it wouldn't really work that well, perhaps, in most other Gundam series, where they really focus upon sort of human interaction and issues with humans dealing with humans. But in this case, with Gundam 00, one of the sort of key themes of Gundam 00's universe is the innovators, where they're meant to be something to cope with the future, which involves contacting other species or other races in the galaxy or in outer space, in the universe. And the purpose of innovators are not to be super soldiers. They're here for I guess to prepare for upcoming dialogue or communication with aliens or other beings out there. And that's why I think the alien invasion angle fits so well in Gundam 00's movie, in that it's the natural next step to think about as a story point. I mean, in series, or rather Season 1 and Season 2 of Gundam 00, the TV show, we've already dealt with issues with humanity dealing with itself. Now we can look at humanity dealing with foreign beings, essentially. And so that's why I like the alien invasion angle in Gundam 00. If we were to return to other sort of issues with governments and war and politics in the movie, it would just be retreading material we've already seen in Seasons 1 and 2. Now, another thing I like about the movie is just the high-quality animation. I mean, it's just breathtaking to look at. Crisp, clear, fluid animation. The action scenes are well choreographed, fast and furious, yet at the same time, even though there are literally hundreds of things happening at once on the screen, you're not lost. At least I didn't feel lost. I was able to follow the sort of central focal point of every action scene. And I think the director there, who took care of the action scenes, did just a really wonderful job. And very similarly, the directors who handled the more quiet moments with character development, I think they did a great job as well. I mean, one part that was actually involved in an action scene was when Alleluia was doing all these acrobatics, and he actually stumbles and falls down on his butt. And that kind of sort of quirk or idiosyncrasy, that kind of detail is really something that shows me that the animators are really paying close attention to what they're doing. A lot of times, animators these days, at least, are focused, I think, too much on doing things too perfectly. But it's when you see these little stumbles, these little quirks in the actions of characters, that's when things are moved to a next level. It then goes from being simply great animation to being like probably like among the best animation as far as I'm concerned, at least these days, because again, we don't often see that kind of attention to detail. Now, the next thing I'd have to mention that I like is just simply the pacing of the movie. The story as it moves on has a nice balance of action sequences and character and plot development sequences. And it's not like a really rhythmic, quiet scene, action scene, quiet scene, action scene, and so on and so forth. There is some variation in how they're balanced, but overall, it's just really well paced, so that there was never a point where I felt bored or felt overwhelmed with action. Whenever the development scenes came up, I was ready for them. I welcomed them. At the same time, when the action sequences came up, I was ready for them again. I was ready to get some more spice into the story. And for a movie like this, which is about 2 hours long, it's actually quite an achievement. Most long movies that are 2 hours or more, often, for me at least, lose hold of me at some point where I sort of get detached from the experience. I'm no longer immersed. With Gundam 00's movie here, there wasn't a point where I wasn't sort of invested into the movie and just sort of in the moment watching the movie, and just I sort of lost myself in it. So I really do like the pacing in it. Finally, it's sort of a two-parter, but I really liked the ending of the movie, the climax, and I also liked the epilogue. Now, the ending, some people either were indifferent, or some people just didn't like it because maybe they didn't get it, or just didn't like how it turned out. But I really liked the ending, the climax. This is how I interpreted the ending. Basically, after Setsuna communicates or gets the information from the aliens' hive mind and understands what they've gone through in their past and what they're trying to do now, he basically chooses to go to the alien homeworld and connect to the hive mind directly. And what happens then is that they have an exchange where Setsuna, or like the Earth side of the story, gets uploaded to the aliens, and then the aliens can see what we're going through, where we're being invaded, and their attempt to communicate is actually something harmful to us. Their assimilation of basically any sort of mechanical or organic material is something that is not good. That's actually negative. So when that happens, the aliens then finally understand, oh, well, we didn't know. Thanks for telling us. And what they do is that they, I guess, lock onto something important in Setsuna's mind, which is the flower that Felt gave him. And what they do then is they basically throw up the white flag. They call truce, and in order for them to communicate, because they can't literally speak, they visualize something with themselves on the battlefield. They turn themselves into this large flower, the same flower that Setsuna was given. Or they create a visual representation of it. And in that way, they stop fighting. The humans are obviously confused, but they're like, okay, well, why is there now a flower in outer space, a giant flower, instead of all these little alien things? And that's the thing. It is somewhat ambiguous at a glance, and it's supposed to be. These are aliens. They don't speak or communicate in the same way, so they're just trying to reach out to us, again, visually, by showing themselves as this large flower, because to Setsuna, that's important, and to them, they think, well, maybe other people are like hive minds, all are one, so they think the flower would mean the same thing to everyone else on Earth as it would mean to Setsuna. Obviously, it doesn't, but I mean, it gets the job done. They stop fighting, and then, they're able to then start, on the path of, I guess, peace. Now, that's how I interpreted the ending, and I actually really like that. It makes sense to me, where Setsuna can communicate with them at the speed of thought, right? He gets into a mental link-up with them, and that's why everything stops so suddenly. It's not like he has to have this drawn-out, long, melodramatic conversation that we often see in anime and other types of media. And so I'm glad we see something like that. It's something not expected. I think it's something that, in some ways, may be too smart, with all due respect, maybe too smart for the average anime viewer. Because, to be honest, in my observations, a lot of Gundam fans are all about the action and not so much about character development, story development, or even some sort of more, I guess, complex concepts. They just want to see action and robot fights. So this is not going to provide that to them. And even the 00 Quanta, for example, isn't really necessarily a war machine. I think it's, to me at least, it seems to be optimized for GN particle dispersion, for the purpose of Setsuna being able to communicate with a whole bunch of people at once. And yeah, I really like that concept for the quanta. Now, that being said, let's move on to the epilogue, which again, I just like the climatic ending. I really like. There's a part, the first part of the epilogue shows a flashback, which could be considered, I guess, a prologue to Gundam 00, where we see a younger Aeolia, uh, and he's talking about his misgivings about humanity and how he thinks humanity is failing and how he thinks humanity needs to change in order to really grasp the future. And then we skip 50 years ahead after the ending of Gundam 00, Awakening of the Trailblazer, I think, to when Marina Ismail is an older woman. She's elderly, and she's visited by Setsuna, who has returned to Earth, and he's returned not as himself physically, but as, I think, a hybrid of the aliens and him. He's basically, we see Setsuna, but as a metal-fleshed being. And he reunites with Marina, and he tells her that we finally, and they say to each other, we finally understand each other. And I think some people don't get that either, or they don't like it, I don't know, but how I interpret it is that Setsuna, even after the ending of the TV series, was never completely either understanding or agreeing with Marina's pacifist stance on things. But after his experience at the end of the movie, where he's sort of mentally linked with the aliens and then has gone to their homeworld, he now can understand how important, I think, communication is, about reaching out to people and not necessarily trying to resolve issues by conflict. Like Celestial Being, they were basically vigilantes. And so that's why I think he and she have said together, I finally, that they've reached an understanding, they understand each other. And I think that's a great ending. I mean, to me, it was a touching moment that Marina has finally Setsuna has finally seen eye to eye with Marina after all these years. And for me, sort of the best part of that epilogue is when we see, I'm not sure what it is, it's like an evolved form of the 00 Quanta, or that line of mobile suit design, but then it's rapidly, I think, covered in flowers. And to me, the way I took that scene was that it was sort of a visual representation of the war machine retiring, that it's out of service, it's not sort of going to fight anymore, and it's sort of surrendering itself to the land by saying, cover me with flowers, and it's basically retired. It's no longer going to fight. And in a way, that's sort of, I guess, a show of peace, that it's no longer a war machine. And to me, that's just a really, I don't know, warm, touching moment. I really liked that for the ending of the movie and, the ending of Gundam 00. And yeah, I think there's so much in this movie that could be, I think, discovered by repeat viewings and some more thought into what is expressed in the movie. I think this movie is great for layers of depth that will take some time and effort to maybe uncover or understand. So those are my thoughts on the movie. I hope you guys enjoyed the movie as much as I did, whoever has seen it and whoever will see it. Definitely, if anybody out there has seen this movie, please leave a comment. Let me know and let everyone else know what your thoughts are on the movie. As usual, video responses are also welcome for sure. I'd love to hear and read everyone else's thoughts on this very, very interesting movie. As usual, I thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you guys at the next video.